Okay, good morning. We have a very special luncheon for you today. I would like to introduce Rick Lopez. He is our Government Affairs Director. He's going to take it from here. Come on up, Rick.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank all of you for coming today to what is a very important topic for us. As you all know, we're in election season. We're all disgusted and sick and tired of all the ads and the brochures and the text messages and all that stuff that's hitting us every single day. But local elections, the city council election, is by far the single most important thing that you can engage in. So I really appreciate your attendance today. And if you would do me a favor, when you go back to your offices, make sure that other people in your office are aware of the video that they can watch, because in that recent poll that we did, which surprisingly had very few respondents to it, it was overwhelming how many people said they don't know who the candidates are. Well, that isn't surprising to me, but this is a way that you can be introduced to the candidates. You know what they think. You can get an idea of how they will govern if they get elected. And so it is really important for you to make sure that other people in your offices know that the video is available. They can watch it at their leisure, and that way they will know who the candidates are, what they stand for, how they might govern if elected, and it will let them know who they choose to vote for come November. So it's really critically important that we get our membership engaged in our local election. And it's a long ballot. Let me tell you, this is a really long ballot that we're going to be getting with all this the national things that are on the election, the state issues, local issues, county issues. There are several propositions that are going to be on the ballot, and it's important that all of you understand and know what the local impacts are, what the county ballot measure is, what the city's ballot measures are, and then who the candidates are and what they stand for. So I really encourage all of you to really take just back to your offices, make sure that everybody understands how important this is so that they can start watching this video. Okay, so again, thank you so very much for coming today. I look forward to having the candidates listen to the questions that are going to be asked. And by the way, the board approved the questions that we're going to be asking today, and we've addressed the questions to be very specific to each candidate, so they're not all going to get the same question to answer. They're very specific questions to how they responded to our questionnaire. Some of them in response to the Daily Sun. So we're asking them for additional information on some of those responses so that you get a better idea of where they stand on issues that might be of importance to our association. Okay? So anyway, I welcome the candidates. Thank you so much for coming and participating in our luncheon. And I thank all of you for coming today. And so I'm going to turn it over to Gary.
Good afternoon, everybody. I think it is afternoon, so it's still morning. A little feedback, isn't there?
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. All right. Is there feedback? Yeah. Quite a bit. So my voice isn't. There it is. Not as much as. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. Well, good afternoon. I'm Gary Nelson with Realty Executives, and I'm really happy to have been asked to speak a little bit and help at the forum. And I'll echo what Rick said. Thank you very, very much to everybody that's come today. The ones that aren't running, we appreciate you coming here. And as for the candidates, we very much appreciate you coming as well. And it's great for us to be able to educate our members as to what's going on in the city of Flagstaff and of course, the county, state, and national. A couple of things real quickly. Wanted to mention real quickly RAPAC, which is the Realtors of Arizona Political Action Committee. RAPAC is the strongest lobbying group in the state of Arizona, and you're all a part of that. And we are very, very happy that those of you that get to RAPAC on an ongoing basis. I know, I gotta tell you, I do. This little gold pin is the most expensive thing most expensive piece of jewelry I've ever had. And then also the National Association of Realtors, RPAC, the Realtors Political Action Committee, and also our funds that go towards RPAC. We are the largest lobbying entity in the United States. People don't realize that. We're the largest lobbying entity in the state of Arizona. People don't realize that as well. What we lobby for isn't quite as sexy as everybody wants it to be, but it's private property rights, it's fair housing, it's all of those things that we do as realtors, loan programs, lending programs, all that. So thank you those of you that give to RAPAC and RPAC, and I want to invite the rest of you to join us. Wanted to remind you to vote today for our local association of realtors. Ballot is today as well. And just please remember to vote. I think everybody did as you went in, but you could vote online or you can by paper back there. So wanted to also remind you another thing is 2 of our candidates that are here today are write-in candidates. Our two candidates, one is here today and one is not, and they're write-in candidates. So as you vote for city council for Flagstaff, remember that there are 2 write-in candidates and you need to write out their name. You cannot use initials, so it can't be D, it needs to be Deborah, and try to get the spelling right. That always helps, but make sure that you write that out. Right now, I invite the candidates to come forward, if you would, and take a seat on either side, whatever you'd like to do here, and just grab a table. There's a microphone at on each table, and you can grab that as you come up. We will give you the podium once we get started. So those of you that are listening and watching, our format is that we're going to have a 1-minute introduction by each candidate when they're called on. Then I'll ask 3 questions. The questions were formulated by Rick and tweaked a little bit. And those 3 questions are specific to each candidate. And it comes off the questionnaire that they had, and we asked them to fill out a questionnaire from the Northern Arizona Association of Realtors, and then their answers to those questions spurred a few more questions. Maybe if I stand over here, it's better. There's a little bit of feedback, so maybe that's the way my voice is. Used to sound like the guy from Jack in the Box, but not as much as I thought. So anyways, we'll get started with that so that each candidate will have a 1-minute introduction. They'll have 2 minutes to respond to the questions that I ask, and then they'll have a 1-minute time to close out and follow up with the like. So let's start things off with Miranda Sweet.
Right behind you.
Hi, Miranda. You grab that mic right there.
I did turn it off, so you will need to turn it.
Yeah, turn it back on. There's a little switch right there. I'm gonna step this way. Try to get away from, is that mine out of it now? Or is that right? Where I am?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And this is,
Yeah, go right
Yeah,
ahead.
I can't zoom out.
so I'm doing the intro to myself. A lot of you probably know me. I recognize a few of you in the room. I am Miranda Sweet. I'm running for re-election. I moved here in 1993. I attended NAU. I was a teacher here in town at Thomas Elementary. And 24 years ago, I stopped that career and decided to follow my dream, and I opened up a small business downtown. And I have been in the same location ever since. And something fun about myself, which should tell you that I'm in it for the long haul, is that I am training for a half Ironman. I've done one before, and I'm hoping to do another one in December. And that is coinciding with this election cycle, and it's been interesting. So I do currently serve on council, and I'm running again because I feel that I add a unique voice to our council. Being a small business owner, I think I add value into the conversation. And I remember when I first got elected, talking with the mayor about some of the struggles we have as a small business community. And she kind of looked at me like, really, you're not doing all that great. It's like, no, there's a lot going on between raising the rents and not being able to have staff and all the challenges. And so I think I offer that in our conversations. Are you coming up because I'm
That's the
oh,
hook.
so much noise?
Yeah, that's the hook.
All right, thank you.
So I forgot to mention Karen here is our timekeeper, and there she is right there. So she'll hold up a little 30 for 30 seconds and then stop. And beyond that, her name is Karen. So yeah, there it is. And so the first question, so we asked each candidate multiple questions. A questionnaire was sent to each, and they could all answer the same question. But so this is off of yours, and a couple of the questions are a little softer, and a couple are a little bit more hard hitting. So, but we save those for the. So here's the first one. In your response to the Realtors questionnaire, you respond several times about the high cost of doing business in Flagstaff. What exactly do you mean by that, and how would you address that?
So this recently happened on council. For me, what I'm talking about are all the fees, like I said, the increased rents. But I'm going to turn this attention to the water rate study that just happened. And I went down the road thinking, you know, we need the water infrastructure. And I'm going to go all in on this water rate increase. And I started talking to other small business owners and other residents who are like, man, if you do this, I'm not going to be able to handle it. I will close. You know, and it's not just the water rate increase, it's all the other fees. The fire inspections, the grease trap cleaning, you name it, and we have it. So I'm kind of a quieter council member, but when I speak, people do listen. And at the very end of the multiple water rate discussions that we had on council, at the very last minute, I couldn't go to bed without calling one last meeting. And I did. And I said, you know what? I know a lot of you, it was right before council break. People are getting ready to go on vacation. There was a lot of pressure on me not to do this, but I did it. And I said, I am going to call an emergency meeting before we put this thing through, because I do not want to tack on something to the cost of living here, to the cost of doing business, and not have our community be able to handle it. So I called that emergency meeting, and I did get the rates along with council support down. It's not perfect. Nothing's ever perfect, but at least I was able to leave that meeting knowing that I gave it every attempt and every chance to do what I can to make this town more affordable. And it is just the compounding the costs of everything. So thank you.
Thank you. So, second question. Since the city declared a housing emergency in 2020, many feel that the city has subsequently increased the cost of new homes built in Flagstaff through various policy measures, including what you just mentioned, the recent increase in the water capacity fees. Can you comment on that?
So I think we have some conflicting, and they don't need to be conflicting, but sometimes, like when we're looking at our climate neutrality plan, and we're saying we want to do these measures, like put in EV ready ports into all new builds. When that happens, we're taking care of one issue, which I support, but yet we're putting that onto the cost of building the house. And what is that developer going to do? They're going to put it onto the cost of buying the house. So I think what I'm realizing and really working through is how do we tackle all of our emergencies that we have? It's not just housing. We also have a climate emergency. We also have other things happening like our CIP program. And so how do we get them all to work together? And I feel that what I would like to champion and work towards is if we're going to demand EV ready new builds, that we take that into consideration and take that off of the cost of building a house in a different way, whether it's waiving a permit fee, lowering the cost of plans going through and reviews. And I'm at the beginning stages of trying to figure all this out, and I think that staff is hearing city council loud and clear that we want to look at all of the options, all of the ways to make sure that as we're tackling one issue in Flagstaff, we're not tacking that onto our housing crisis.
Thanks. Third question here. You state that one of our community's frustrations is that the state prevents us from being able to address certain issues at a local level. One example you comment on is rent control. Do you support rent control as a way of addressing our affordable housing challenge?
So I think that that's hard for me to answer because right now we can't go down that path. I am willing and hopefully able to talk to our state representatives on all options. I don't know a lot about rent control, and I'll be very honest with you. But if it is a way, another path to getting ourselves out of the mess that we're in, I'm willing to talk about it. I know that in other communities it has worked. I believe there are challenges with it. I do get frustrated with the preemption that we have with our state. Not all communities have that. And I think it really ties our hands to even exploring the options out there. And that's frustrating as a council member because we start going down this road and think, okay, we can have these conversations about rent control or about short-term rentals or about whatever the case may be. It takes a big toolbox to tackle this issue. And the preemption is just, it's real. And I didn't really think about it when I was running the first time around on what a big impact that has on our city council. So when I'm up there on the dais, I do everything I can to push the envelope, to explore all the options, to learn what we can and cannot do, and ask the questions of, well, you're telling me I can't do that, but what is the closest I can do to be able to get there?
Thank you. And so you have a final minute that you'd like to, anything you'd like to speak about?
So, like I said, I am running for re-election. I do feel that I am a very well-rounded candidate. I look at all angles. I'm accessible. I talk to the community. I've been in this community. I work really hard. One of my folks endorsing me says, you know, you won't find a harder working council member. I do believe that. We have a lot of things that we're tackling. The Lone Tree Overpass, the Rio to Flag program, new water wildcat facility. I am heavily involved in a lot of the issues coming our way, and I think continuity is important. And so I just hope that you would consider re-electing me for another 4-year term. Thank you.
Next up is Anthony Garcia. Hit record right there.
Yeah,
That's smart. Okay. Good use of your hat too.
gotta use it for something. I wear so many of them.
Yeah. So you have 1 minute for an introduction.
Great. Is there a mic or should I?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, my name is Anthony Garcia. Is it on?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, I can just rock the room. I can do it. We do it without the mic. I'm cool with that. My name is Anthony Garcia. I am a 3rd generation son of Flagstaff. I think that I bring a unique perspective of adding historical authenticity to our cultural past. I also care deeply about the environment when it comes to having the same lived experience for our future generations, like our grandchildren and their grandchildren, that I had growing up here, which to me means the ability to feel safe in your community at all times, the ability to kind of access your own adventure as a child. You know, I grew up in the generation where we were able to kind of come and go as we please, and I want Flagstaff to have that same feel because that's what we have here. I also want to make it available and affordable for people that are the working class here in Flagstaff because that's who I am. But as a working class member, I've spent the last close to 17 years at city council meetings and stuff. Excuse me, we're done now.
Got himself right off. That was good. Thank you.
Cool.
I didn't have to give you the hook.
I gave everybody my card.
So first question, in your response to our question about the housing emergency, you mentioned that you would like to see the 28.5 acres city-owned parcel adjacent to Pine Canyon redeveloped using the land trust model.
I would.
That land trust model used in Crestview has been very difficult to implement. Out of the 12 lots provided in that subdivision for affordable housing, not all of them have been built on since 2018. What would you do differently with the current land trust model that would make it more effective?
So when it comes to the land trust model, there's certain parts of Arizona state law, and you'll see this when it comes to home rule, where we don't have a lot of flexibility. And the only thing I can offer is keeping the ball rolling when it comes to places like that development in particular. There's also plans that aren't being effectively carried through or seen through with redeveloping our the housing that we do own for the city, Clark Homes, Seiler Homes, and the like. There are plans for it, but and I'm sure somebody's pushing for it. But if we have another person, a city council person, a leader, to be able to ask, our federal and state partners to keep the ball pushing in that direction, then we could have at least somebody fighting for getting those places redeveloped. And once we can, free up some of our current, low-income housing that's being taken by those that are in apartments on vouchers and stuff and put them into government housing, then we'll have more ability to house the rest of our employees. We're having a problem with keeping employees here in Flagstaff. We're also having a problem with business development here in Flagstaff, and it's all because of the affordability component. At every opportunity, land trust might not be the exact answer, but what else are we doing with that land? Somebody needs to talk about that, and I want that to be me.
Thank you. Regarding the question of economic development, you mentioned that as our Beautification and Public Art Commissioner from 2017 to 2024, you facilitated over $15 million in BBB funding to empower the arts, culture, and science sectors.
Yeah.
Can you expand on how you feel these programs benefit economic development?
So, I'm also the only member of the community that has pushed for the Art X Festival since 2011, and we're barely starting to see it now. It's a slow growing process, as you know, many things in Flagstaff are. But the goal behind that was eventually not just to bring the festival here, but to be able to make Flagstaff a cultural hub for the Southwest, kind of take that away from the Santa Fe, because we have the talent currently right here just due to our demographics. Because I care about art and culture and expression and how we represent ourselves and how that can make us unique as opposed to anywhere in the United States. If we don't harness that and make some money off of that, quite frankly, because we can't live without money, that is an opportunity that is not being tapped into 100% when it comes to economic development. So making this a destination for travel is important for me, not just a pass through to the Grand Canyon, and to represent Arizona and our community as cultural ambassadors that we are. I mean, there's a reason why we're all here. It's because we love Flagstaff. There's a certain it factor that Flagstaff has that other places don't have, and that has everything to do with the culture. It has everything to do with our arts. It has everything to do with the way we operate in this town. And when we can put some monetary gains behind that, we're looking at a sector that's untapped. Yeah, there's manufacturing. We'd like to get them up here. It's hard to, because 2 hours down the road, there's infrastructure set up for manufacturing that trumps ours, and we can't compete with it. But when it comes to culture and the arts, that's something that nobody can compete with us. We're very unique, and we can. It's an untapped resource, and I believe that through my leadership in the Beautification and Public Art Commission, redeveloping that department, making it to where people come to us, we'll be able to put some more money into our pockets.
Thank you. Your third and final question. In your response to private property rights, you indicate this is a, quote, weird question because the state restricts our ability to, once again, quote, infringe on private property rights, rent control, or short-term rentals.
True.
Do you believe the city should have more control over these issues?
When it comes to, it would be nice for us to be able to make our own rules, period. So that way we can all get together and figure out what we need to do. Now, me as leadership, I'm not the type of leader that's going to come up here and tell you, you know, just tell you what you want to hear so I can get elected. And then what am I going to do? I'm the type of leader. Let's just back that up a little bit. So I stumbled into the city council in 2008 because I wanted to help the Orpheum with an issue that they're having with their roof, and the city was able to help them with that. And since then, you know, I realized that my voice really makes a difference and matters, but it was never my voice. Every time that I was up there, I was out on the street connecting to the community. You know, I work, you know, a regular blue collar job at UACJ Whitehall as a transportation coordinator. When I get off of work on any day and every day of the week, I go out to the community and try to help out. So it's by getting, so the short answer is yes, I would like us to have home rules. So that way, when I communicate with you guys, you can let me know what you want us to do. And then we can take that to the city council and change it. When it comes to a city council member, another thing that we can do is we can go down to the state, you know, and also to Washington, and we can, you know, advocate. And the more we advocate, the more we push for our town to, you know, get the rights back, the more important it is. Now, when it comes to rent control, I don't know if that's necessarily something that we need here, but I do think we need local control back.
Thank you. And then you have 1 minute to finish up.
Cool. Well, I just wanted to kind of expand on my experience. As I said, I went down to the city hall in 2008, spent the next 3 years going to every single council meeting because I knew nothing about anything. In 2011, I knew enough to move forward, became a commissioner, 5 years as a chair of that commission, and we really redeveloped that department. I'm currently on the Regional Plan 2045 committee. We have one meeting left that you guys can participate in on the 30th. This is the plan for our future. I read every email and will implement anything that makes sense that you guys write to me in that plan. I was delegated to that position by our District 2 supervisor, Geronimo Vasquez. So you can trust me because a lot of people in this community do. I am a voice of the middle class. I am the voice of the person who lives paycheck to paycheck and the working class. So maybe I might not be able to relate to everybody in this room, but if we don't have one person that comes from that angle, that looks like me, that lives like me, then we're missing a huge swath of our community that doesn't have a voice. I will bring that voice to our community.
Thank you, Anthony. That'll be easiest, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. If you get it in there.
Yeah. It's tight, tight.
Next up is David Spence. And again, David, there's the mic for you, and you'll have 1 minute to as an introduction.
Well, thank you for this invitation. Thank you for lunch. Guess I'm the only one that was finishing up the head table here. Yes, my name is David Spence, and I'm a practicing physician. I practice as a volunteer 2 days a month at the Puhr Medical Clinic. And I want to start out by saying there are 2 things that I will not do if I'm elected to council. I will not get in the middle of the controversy over buyers and sellers agents splitting your commissions.
Thank you.
Second thing that I will not do is violate, as a city council member, I will not advocate for violating state or federal laws or regulations that would bring us into a lawsuit situation. So, 2 things I won't do. There are many other things that I will do. I will look at Minutes up?
That's the hook.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
Thank you. So the first question for you, David, you mentioned as a reason for running for city council that you are concerned about sustainable growth and you want to avoid urban sprawl. Given that more and more home buyers are buying in Williams, Winslow, Purdy Valley, Munns Park, and other areas in search of more affordable homes, what do you mean by sustainable growth? And what would you do to incentivize developers to build more homes inside the city limits attainable by our workforce?
Very good question. First of all, what I'm thinking, well, first of all, I am driving a school bus for my third year now, and I drive all over the city and see the housing developments that we currently have. And I'm convinced that there is property scattered throughout the town that is suitable for infill and for redevelopment. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but as a council member, I would advocate for carefully studying the infill and redevelopment potentials. I am a supporter of the quote 15-minute city, unquote, and I think Flagstaff certainly can implement the elements of 15-minute city, which is that people should be able to walk or bicycle within 15 minutes to shop and to recreate and to be with their neighbors. So I would advocate for all forms of all types of housing. You guys are the experts on this, but I think we need, within our city limits, we need RV parks. Somebody can get a used RV and pay a fee to park it and have sewer and water and electricity. We need mobile home parks. We have many around the city, but I think we need to develop them intelligently. We need spaces for manufactured homes like Railroad Springs, and we need appropriate apartment complexes, which we have already over our city, but I think there's room for more. And I would not favor a whole lot more 5-story multifamily housing.
Thank you. Question number 2, in your response to the Daily Sun's question about traffic congestion, you mentioned the need to relieve the congestion on Puhr Valley Road. This has been studied for years with numerous proposals submitted. I live that way, so I experienced that. What would you do to make this a priority for the city and state, and what would you recommend if elected?
As I mentioned in that answer, I'm not an expert on traffic management and reducing traffic congestion, but I am convinced that the experts can come up with a plan. Well, first of all, let me say that I do not favor a bypass around the city for snowplay people from Phoenix coming up to get directly to the snow bowl bypassing Flagstaff. So I'm taking that off the table in terms of my advocacy. I believe that Fort Valley Road traffic congestion, especially during the winter months and at times during the summer when we have traffic on Fort Valley Road, I'm convinced there's an answer out there. One example would be a bidirectional lane. So you can have two lanes going up to Snow Bowl in the morning and 2 lanes coming back in the evening. You certainly need to prepare for emergency vehicles. And again, I'm not an expert, but if I'm on the city council, I'm going to turn to the experts and seek a solution, because I think there are people who come here to recreate with our beautiful mountain snow. They deserve to be able to get through town and get up to the slopes in a timely fashion.
Thank you. And then your third question. The city of Flagstaff is having a significant challenge retaining employees in all divisions as well as recruiting people. What would you do specifically to address this ongoing problem?
Well, as other candidates have mentioned, affordable housing is a key component. And as I just said, I think having a full range of housing options is the way to go. I would not want to criminalize people sleeping in their cars or their trucks. I would not want to criminalize camping within the city. But rather, I would like to see regulations and support for people that are unhoused. We do have good housing, emergency housing shelters, Sunshine Mission, Rescue Mission, the shelter out on Huntington Avenue. But we need to protect people that are unhoused. And I want to see the full range of housing options. As I mentioned, RV parks, manufactured homes, mobile home parks, and apartments. There are certainly other, in addition to affordable housing, there are a lot of other issues that are involved in being able to afford to live in Flagstaff. And if I'm on the council, I will try to look at all those issues.
Thank you. So you do have 1 final minute to summarize.
Well, thank you. Once again, I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself to you. I want to share another element about my campaign, and that is I am running for a 4-year term, and I pledge to you, in case you're trying to bribe me by re-election campaign funding, I will not take any re-election money because I'm only going to be there for 4 years. And in that time, I will work for social justice, climate action, and preventing urban sprawl.
Next up is Deborah Harris. You'll have 1 minute to introduce yourself.
So yes, my name is Deborah Harris and I am running for re-election, and I'm running as a write-in candidate. If you want to know the story behind that, catch me after and I'll tell you. Life just happens. I've been here for over 35 years or close to 35 years, came here from Wisconsin, took a job at NAU, worked there for over 25 years, retired in 2017 and decided that I wasn't quite ready to stop. And so I am an advocate for folks that don't have a voice or that folks that I feel do not have a voice. And so I want to make sure that those voices are heard at City Council. So that's where I'm running for re-election. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll get to the first question here. You mentioned in your responses that you bring a, quote, common sense approach to addressing the issues facing our community. Could you give us an example of what you mean by that?
Yeah, well, folks that know me, when I worked at the university, my job was to fix it. And my dean of students, he wanted to make sure that when people walked into our office, that they didn't have to go anywhere else. And he said, Deb, use whatever tool you have available to you to make that happen. And so I think that sometimes we're not willing to think outside of the box. And we're not willing to ask other people. We want to pretend that we know it all and that it's our way or the highway. And I'll tell a really quick story. Nikki Giovanni spoke once here in Flagstaff, and she said that what would have happened had we brought all of the dreamers in the world into a room, told the engineers to sit by and listen, and we could have gotten those people on the shuttle back alive. Maybe. So I think it's important for us to bring everybody to the table and then use our common sense. You know, we have a lot of good common sense. We don't have to do things business as usual. If an idea sounds like a good idea, let's explore that. Let's see if it works. that's the way I live my life. Just common sense, everyday living, just trying to figure it out one day at a time.
Thank you. Second question, in response to our question about the housing emergency, you indicate the city needs to, quote, get out of our own way. What do you mean by that, and how do you plan to address that if elected?
Yeah, we do. We need to get out of our own way. And I haven't been silent about that. People know that we have a lot of regulations that we probably don't need to have. We take a lot of time for builders to get things done. We can work faster and we can work smarter without working harder. And so that's what I mean. The city needs to get rid of some of the policies that don't make sense. We need to reevaluate those policies and see if we really need to have them. And I think that sometimes we've been doing things the same way for so long that it's hard for us to step back and have anyone come in and evaluate what we're doing, because we don't want to admit that maybe we're not doing it the best way. And so that's what I mean about getting out of our own way so that we can get things done. And we also need to be able to look at different options for infrastructure and how that all works. Because there are other cities that are doing some amazing things with infrastructure so that those costs are not passed on automatically to the developers every time. Okay.
Thank you. And then your third and final question. In your review of the 2024 regional plan, you mentioned that there are some things you agree with and others that you don't. Could you tell us what are some of the things you don't agree with? And if elected, what plan do you have to address your concerns?
And this isn't a secret either. The regional plan asked us to do a lot of infill, okay? And the 3 neighborhoods that everybody wants to put all of the housing in, South Side, Sunnyside, and La Plaza. And so that I don't agree with. I think that if we're gonna do housing, it needs to be spread throughout the city. Not in my backyard, it's not gonna work. And so that's my big issue, is that we need to look at that regional plan and then we need to change that so that it goes all across the city. None of our neighborhoods should be not in my backyard. People want to build a apartment building or whatever in Ponderosa Trails where I live, go for it. Not gonna bother me at all. So.
Thank you. And then you have one final minute.
All right. So like I said, you know, life just kind of happens to people. And so I did decide late that I was going to run for re-election. And like I said, I can tell you all about that at another point in time, but I do believe in sustainability, but I don't think that there's only one way to do it. I also believe that we do have water and we do have pretty much of it. We just have to figure out how it gets to the city. And I think that everybody that comes to Flagstaff ought to be able to live here comfortably and affordably. And I think that I'm going to work to the best of my ability to make sure that that happens. And affordable housing is workforce housing. And so NAU, Coconino Community College, the city, and any of our other bigger organizations, they need to be looking at that, and I will be challenging them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Get it? Thank you. Oops. Next up is Dennis Gibbons. Dennis, just like everyone else, you'll have a 1-minute introduction.
All right.
Should be on.
Hello, how's it going, everyone? My name is Dennis Gibbons. I was raised on Luke Air Force Base down in Phoenix. I got a track scholarship to NAU, and that's where I learned my passion for public service. My dad was a fireman, so I definitely want to help out the community as best as I can. after college, I started to help out small businesses. So that's what I've been doing for the last decade. And now I'm running for city council and I want to learn, listen, and love, and hopefully help everyone out, not just some people, everyone. And I'm proud to be American, and I hope to make this country great and this place better for everyone. So thank you for having me here.
Thanks, Spence. Your first question, in your response to our question about the housing emergency, you mentioned that there are, quote, a lot of regulatory barriers blocking the kinds of housing our community needs the most smaller, modest units that are affordable to lower income residents. What are those barriers and what would you do to remove them if elected?
I'm not too sure what the barriers are precisely, but I know that there are barriers and codes that need to be changed within the city to help build more housing that people want to see built and add to the market. I'm definitely down to listen to everyone. So if you have my email or my Facebook, please message me. And I'm definitely here to learn. But I don't know too much about the regulations, but I know that there are regulations that put a lot of cost on the builders and they put all the cost on the buyers. So if we get rid of some of these regulations that cause high prices, we could hopefully have affordable housing and maybe you guys can make money as well. So that's what I'm here to learn, and please reach out to me. I'm here for you all.
Thank you. Second question, in addressing private property rights, you indicate you would like to see policies enacted that would incentivize the conversion of short-term rentals to housing for locals. If elected, what incentives would you propose and how would you create public policy in Flagstaff that would accomplish that?
Well, that's a good question. What incentives will I propose? I know that the government, the local government is willing to help out with first-time home buyers and people who aren't making a lot of money, but I know that the government is limited on funding, so definitely we could look to private entities to help out people, to help them get into housing. Yeah, these are really good questions, and this is something I'm definitely looking forward to learning about. And I know that a lot of people do need housing, like the workforce. So I want to know what they could do because a lot of my friends are moving away. A lot of the good workers in the city, the police officers, the firemen, the teachers, the nurses, the doctors, maybe not the doctors, but a lot of the people that do a lot of the hard labor around here need help. And I know that the government can't solve all of our problems, so we definitely need to look elsewhere. But I just think we need to build a culture of just helping each other out and figuring out all this together. Thanks for this question. I'm definitely do some more research.
Thank you. Third and final question regarding our question about diversity in home ownership. You state, this is a quote, the best thing the city could do to make housing more attainable is to bring down its cost. How exactly would you propose to do that if elected?
Like I said, getting rid of some of these regulations and codes that cause the developers to spend way more money than they have to and help people who are buying houses not bear the burden because all these houses that are in Flagstaff, $500,000 homes, not most people can afford those houses. And I feel like a lot of outsiders are going to buy up all the houses and push out a lot of people to help build this great city. So I definitely want to look at the codes, the regulations, and see what we can do to help out the developers so they don't have to put all the burden on the buyers, and we can build more houses and people will buy them up and you guys can all benefit from it, and then we'll just have a great community. But definitely check out my brochure on that table. Email me. I would love to hear from everyone. And I'm here to learn, listen, and love. So please help me out and I'll help you out. All I'm trying.
Thanks, Dennis. And then finally, you have one minute to summarize.
Like I said, I'm here to learn and I want to definitely hear from everyone. I'm not just here to listen to a certain group. I think I'm the only independent running for city council, so I definitely want to reach across the aisle and be nonpartisan and just make sure that everyone's voice is heard so we can come up with great plans that benefits all of us, and we can help build back better and make it great. So let's just get to work, and I'm here for you all. Please contact me, and thank you so much for this experience. It's been a great learning experience, so thank you.
Thanks. Next up is Robert Breunig. Everyone else, you have a minute to start off.
Wow. Hello, I'm Robert Breunig, and I'm going to talk real fast. I am retired. I was formerly the director of the Museum of Northern Arizona from 2003 to 2015. Before that, I lived in Austin, Texas, Santa Barbara, California, Phoenix, and before that, I was here in Flagstaff. I first came in 1970. I'm running for city council because I think I have the experience, the judgment, and the wisdom to bring something positive to this community, which I love. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. Your first question, regarding our question about the housing emergency, you indicate our 10-year housing plan isn't aggressive enough and that we should look at other communities such as Minneapolis. I don't think I've ever tongue-tied over that name before, to see if their strategies could be implemented here. Could you give us an example of a strategy you would like to see, and if elected, how would you facilitate our 10-year plan to be more aggressive?
So right now, the 10-year plan says we're going to try to get half of the affordable houses we need in Flagstaff over the next 10 years. I'd like to see that moved up. I'd like to see more affordable houses here in Flagstaff. So I suggested, the question was, well, what would you do to get more affordable houses? And I don't know all the answers, but I do know that other communities, because this is a national problem, we hear about it discussed at a national level, but other communities have addressed this problem and have tried to come up with solutions. One solution would be to take a very good close look at our zoning codes and see if we could facilitate other types of housing here in Flagstaff other than just the single family home on a single lot. So maybe more duplexes, triplexes, maybe more townhome complexes, more apartment complexes. I'd like to see perhaps more density spread throughout the city, not just in one location or several locations. And I'd like to see a more walkable, affordable city. That would be my answer.
Thank you. For your second question, you mentioned that it isn't the job of city council to, quote, create jobs, but rather it is the job of the city council to foster a climate in which jobs can be created. What would you do if elected to foster that kind of climate that would create the kind of jobs we would like to see in our community?
Well, first of all, when I was out collecting names on my petitions, I talked to a lot of people, and people told me over and over and over again, affordability was the issue. And so we can't have a good workforce here at Flagstaff unless people can afford to live here. And so one of the things that I would want to address is how to make housing more affordable and how to keep people like our teachers, our firefighters, our nurses, and all of those people who are here, who want to be in Flagstaff, how to keep them in Flagstaff. One of the things I just keep hearing over and over again is I don't think my children are going to be able to live here. And this is not a good thing. And this doesn't create a good business climate, by the way, because people want to move away. And I think that the best kind of community is a community where there's a diverse workforce, that people of all kinds can live and thrive and prosper.
Thank you. Your third question, regarding private property rights, you believe that property rights are well protected in Arizona and that cities can and should use their very limited powers to regulate property for the benefit of the community. Could you give us an example of how the city can regulate property and what benefit to the community would be acceptable use of that regulatory power the city may have?
Well, first I want to back up and say property rights in the United States are protected by the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Proposition 207, which was passed by the voters of the state of Arizona and through, the state legislature. And so cities have a very narrow playing field for property rights, but they can control zoning. They can have overlay to protect the character of certain neighborhoods, historic character. They can do, there's certain things that cities can do to affect property rights, but I think are for the overall benefit of the community. And so what I would want to do is look at any kind of action that would limit property rights and say, how does this benefit the entire community? And can we leave it in place, or should we replace it with something else?
Thank you. And then you have your final minute.
Well, so I'm running for, as I said, I'm running for city council because I think I love this town. I want to bring my experience in managing nonprofit organizations. And I will tell you, when I first came to the museum in 2003, the museum was in a serious financial and governance crisis. We lost our accreditation the day before I arrived at the museum. When I left the museum, we received the National Medal for Museum Service, and I received that award at the White House. And so in that tenure at the museum, I was able to bring it back and utilize my skills and my judgment to bring a very storied institution from a very bad place to a very good place.
Thank you. Well, that's the live portion. We have two of the candidates were not able to make it today. One was Amethyst Deasy, and she wasn't able to make it. But also Stephen Puhr wasn't able to make it as well, but we do have a video, and hopefully we can do that. And in the video, it will be Rick asking 3 questions, and he's given the exact same amount of time that our candidates here that are here over this live had, and so we'll play that for you. Hello.
Hello, I'm Rick Lopez, the Government Affairs Director for our association, and I'm here with Stephen Puhr, who is a candidate for City Council. And the reason that we're doing this video is because Stephen has a trip planned for the month of September and simply won't be able to attend our candidate forum on the 19th. So I'm here to ask Steve basically into the same format that we will be doing at the candidate forum on the 19th, a series of 3 questions. And first, I want to just disclose that Stephen has not been given these questions prior to what I will be doing here shortly. And so, Stephen, I just want you to acknowledge that you've had no information regarding what the questions are prior to today.
That's correct, Rick. I've had no insight on any questions or any conversation about that.
Great. Okay. So, Stephen, why don't you begin by introducing yourself? And again, you have 1 minute to do so.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Steve Puhr, and I am a registered independent, and I'm running as a write-in for the council. And I have 23 years as an investment manager. I've looked at and analyzed companies' strategies and their investments for 23 years, most of the S500, usually 4 times a year. And I think that experience will help me guide the council and the city as they look at their future forecasts and look at their investment plans. The last 16 years, I worked with economic development plans with different tribes around Arizona and California, and I helped them in the many different cultures and needs to go forward and develop things for the community. And I think that experience is unique, that allows me to go ahead and work with the council as we go forward. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that, Steve. Okay, so I'm going to ask you 3 questions. And with each question, as soon as I have finished asking the question, you'll have 2 minutes to answer.
Okay.
So we sent you a questionnaire not too long ago, and you respond to that questionnaire. And in one of the questions you responded to was about jobs, that you are bewildered by the city's economic development plan because they focus on 2 sectors only creating 34 jobs and the other 3 sectors losing almost 1,200 jobs between 2017 and 2022. So first, this 3-part question. Where did you get that information? What specific changes would you like to see adopted in the city's economic development plan? And what would you do to stimulate the kind of jobs you think would be more beneficial to our community?
Thank you, Rick. So I got those particular data information out of what was just passed in the economic plan by the council. That was part of the analysis that was done when it looked at those 5 sectors, okay? So as far as what we want to do going forward, what I think is missing is peeling that onion back a couple of layers. That is what we need to do as a city, is to decide and take a look at how do we compare to other cities who want to attract certain types of businesses. How's our tax rate? How's our codes with regards to building, with regards to the cost of living in this town, the affordability of housing? How do we compare? How do we compete? Right now, I think a good part of those 1,100 jobs that left are some of the jobs that are being moved by Gore down to Phoenix because of the cost of living, and housing is more affordable for their families. So we need to look at ourselves, which we didn't do in the plan. How do we compete with other cities in Arizona for industries that might be attracted? Now, what industries would be attracted to a town of our size? That has to be looked at too. It's another part of the onion that need to be peeled back. So I just think it needs to be a little bit deeper look at where we positioned competitively against other communities to attract certain businesses that might come to this town, because that's a big thing. So as far as I'm concerned, we just have to be more business friendly, and we have to be more family friendly with regards to the cost of housing here.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. The next one is, you state that one of your priorities during the budgeting process would be high-performance governance. What exactly do you mean by that, and how would you go about implementing a policy to achieve that?
Well, I think this recent water rate is a good example. I got involved because they weren't using acceptable forecasting techniques when in their planning. And I brought that to their attention, and that helped bring the water rate down from 167 to 50%. I think more could be done, but that appears to me through other things I look at, the housing plan, for example, the carbon neutrality plan. We don't have how we're going to spend money to do what, to accomplish what, and what are the goalposts. We're studying still things 3 years later on the housing plan. We're still studying things. Yes, there's some money going through to help some rental help and some small help on some money that we have, but there's not really a full plan. I think I'll push more for more measurements along the road as we go forward. And I see that through a number of the planning things we have in this city. We had a question going out to the community with regards to the hospital. We have a question going out now with regards to water. In that water, there is an embedded assumption with regards to the growth rate. The city has adopted 3 different growth rate numbers in a year and a half with regards to what we're doing from a population growth. And it impacts, do we have to spend on a red gap, which is going to cost $200 million? How much do we spend on sewers? How much do we spend on other things? We have to come together and say, hey, look, bring in some experts on the demographics and go forward on those and use those numbers. Don't have a 2.7, a 1.4, and a 0.7. And that's the part of an issue from a planning. We've got to narrow the focus and help us go forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. In your vision for Flagstaff, you mentioned the stormwater rate increases passed last year were unnecessary and could be potentially reduced by 66%. Please explain why they were unnecessary and how would you reduce them by 66%?
Thank you. So, just for everybody to know, I live on West Amano Way, which was the epicenter of flooding 2 years ago. So I really got involved in what's going on in the city and what's going on in particular, how to mitigate what was happening to Coconino Estates during the floods. So when they put in the retention ponds up at Schultz Pass, they immediately said, we need $1.8 million a year in stormwater fees to clean out those detention ponds. They didn't explain, and I asked, how many times are you doing that, et cetera? And what are you assuming? And it's difficult with the uncertainty of rain and how much is going to get there. I get it. But just tell us what the game plan was. And here's why I think we need to reduce that 1.8 million. We have not cleaned out one retention pond yet. We've been through a season, okay? The county in their flood district on the east side has these ponds. They cleaned out 2 of them last year. One for 200,000, one for 300,000. We've got three up there, but 2 really. The third one's really more of a natural one. So I'm looking at that saying, maybe we only need $500,000 according to what the county paid to clean out 2. So we don't need the 1.8. So that's how I get 66%. We can probably reduce that by. And that's what I was looking at, Rick.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. So to wrap this up, why should members of our association vote for you?
Well, as I mentioned, 2 years ago, I live on West Savannah. I really got involved. And how I really got involved was I've been to every budget retreat the city's had for the last 2 years except for one. Okay? I'm the only resident physically in that room during that period of time. No other candidate is there. I am more prepared. I understand what's going on with the city financially, and given my background as a finance executive, I am more prepared than any candidate. So I think you need to consider that. Number 2, I would say that there are some council people that I've worked with to help bring down the water rates. Deborah Harris, Lori Matthews, they are both endorsing my candidacy, and I would appreciate if you'd consider me for your vote. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks, Steve.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Before we wrap things up, first person to get up and leave gets cut off from all MLS services for years. So, but thanks everybody. I made it my own personal life goal that anytime I have a microphone, that my job is to embarrass Judy Jackson. And that when she wasn't paying attention. And she told me if I ever do that again, I'll never sell another home here. And I've only sold 2, so my entire career. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to turn things over. Do you want me to close out, or Rick, do you have any final comments for Christine?
The only thing I want to mention is there's some signs back there. Feel free to take them if you want to post them up on your yard. I think the candidates also dropped off some materials up here. Feel free to take whatever you can. And again, just my gratitude for all of you coming today and for the candidates for coming today to help us become more educated on this election. Thank you.
And yeah, I don't know about you, but I learned a lot. I didn't say praise baby Jesus even once. I meant to a couple of times. So all kidding aside, we really very much appreciate you all coming and all of you coming as well. Have a good afternoon.